Now that we've made a design for our wheel, it's time to put it in and put it on our car. So to do that, we need to show our data panel by clicking the grid in the top left. Find the file where it is and simply right click and select insert into current design. Then from here, we can close our data panel and we can use these little sections to rotate and move our file around. I'm going to untick ground from parent because later on I do want this wheel to actually move independently. So I'm going to place it around about where it needed to be, just in that little wheel arch there. And I'm just going to click on OK. Now, this is a really important thing to remember when we're using this design method. If we are inserting designs from another file, in order to not change the master file, we need to right click and we need to select break link. What it'll do is that components are still exactly the same. It's just that whatever changes we make on this design won't change it on the existing file that we've got. From here, as you can see, this looks a bit like a Hot Wheels car wheel compared to the size that it actually needs to be. Very simply, we can go to modify and we can select scale. From here, we just need to select our entities. This is basically what bodies do we want to actually change the scale of. So we're just going to select those two in our wheels folder. Scale factor in this case works on a ratio. So anything below the original design is going to be a decimal and anything above is going to be a whole number. I want mine to be slightly bigger, so it's going to be let's go with 1.5. Not quite, I'm going to go with 1.6 instead. That looks about right to me, so I'm just going to click on OK. Now what I can do, just so I know how big those wheel axles need to be, is just zoom in a little bit and click on that inner circle just there. As you can see down in the bottom right, it's telling me that that diameter is 40 millimeters. So that's the size that I need to make my axle. I'm going to hide this wheel and I'm simply just going to create a sketch on the inside of both of these just below the center and just create a circle and extrude it out just to add an axle onto those. Once you've got those axles where you need them to be, you can just copy them over to the other side using that mid plane that we had before and go to create, select mirror, click on both of those bodies and select that mid plane as on mirror plane and simply click OK. Once you've done that, you should have those 4 axles to work with in terms of putting the wheel on. So we're going to start just by putting this first wheel on before we then start to duplicate it. So what we're going to do is zoom in a little bit to our wheel. So what we need to do in order to connect this to the axle is we need both the wheel and the body that we're connecting it to be a component. What that means on Fusion is that a body is just seen as a volume of material, whereas a component, when it comes up with this symbol, is recognized by Fusion as a working part of the design. To this, just simply go into your bodies folder and simply right click and do create component from bodies. You can see nothing about the size or the dimensions change, just very simply recognizes it's slightly different. What you can do is you can do a multiple selection by holding shift. It'll select all those in between. Right click and create component from bodies again. We can just do the same on the seats as well. From here, we can now start to assemble these components together. So we can go to the assemble menu and select joint. Now what we need to do, as it says in the dialog box, is choose our snap points. Now we've heard these referred to as biscuits. but I just imagine it is as a point of contact between the two components, or the point at which they meet. To do that, we need to select this inner edge and connect it to the edge of the axle. And what you'll notice is it also adds a motion to this joint as well. What I can then do instead is change this to a revolute joint, and I can start to see this rotation of the wheel. I could even add a minimum and a maximum to this, and also a rest point. But as this is the wheel, it is not limited on the rotation that it can do. So simply click on OK once you've added it. And once again, this is a video where you can collect another trail badge for adding a joint to your design. Keep going, only a couple more to collect. Now, this tip is something I definitely wish that I'd knew sooner. This would have saved me so much time. Now, what we could do is we could keep inserting this wheel into our design and keep adding that joint over and over again. Or we could do it a more efficient way by going to Assemble and selecting Duplicate with Joints. Now for this, all we have to do is select our component, and it's going to stick with the same joint origin as before. So all we need to do is select where that's going to join to. And when we go over to the other side, we just select the edge of this side of our axle instead. Once you're happy with how it looks, click OK. And our car is really starting to come together now.